Hello, hello. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how it was that I came to be a PC gamer. I had said that I was going to do this video at some point, and here we are. Go ahead and do it today. Funny thing, it wasn't even probably, I don't know, a little over a year ago that I was pretty adamant that console was the only way to play, that PCs were a bunch of bullcrap. But you know what? Then I built my first PC, spent some time with mouse and keyboard, and that took some time. It wasn't right away, but now it is certainly the definitive way to play games, in my opinion. So I'm not even worried about these new consoles and their problems, because I'm not going to be investing in those at all. I'm just going to continue to play on my PC. And this PC right here is my more powerful PC out of the two that I've built in the recent past. If you see any of my other videos, you know that I did a computer with a 3600, the 6-core 12-thread Ryzen 5 3600, and a little bit of a story behind that I had put up whenever I previewed that computer. And this particular computer, and that computer had a Ryzen, excuse me, a Radeon RX 5600 XT, which at the time, whenever I built it, was the newest of the Radeon graphics cards. The 57 had already been out, 5700 had already been out for a little while, and they had just released the 5600 XT. Surprisingly enough, that's the one that I currently have on my VR setup. And also I do a little bit of sim racing, and it's where I have my sim racing set up as well. So it's been a really great computer. I can't complain at all. But this computer that I'm playing on now with a 3700X and a Radeon RX 5700 is setting in my office, and it's the more powerful computer, obviously. Both of those computers are running 16 gigabytes of RAM, but the 3700X has 3600 megahertz RAM in it, and the 3600 has only 3200 megahertz RAM, Vengeance RAM. Not that there's that much of a difference between it, but, you know, hey, it is what it is. And so here we are, we're running on the 3700X with the Radeon RX 5700, and I cannot help but be completely and totally enamored by Big Navi now that I've seen it. I really want to acquire a 6800 XT graphics card, because it looks pretty fantastic in my opinion. I'm an AMD fan. I really like what they've been doing. Not a big Intel fan. I do think that the new stuff that NVIDIA put out, the 3090, the 3080, pretty phenomenal cards. I wouldn't mind owning one of them either, but I really do want to keep these desktops that I've built complete AMD builds. I've got a Asus Tough gaming laptop with I'm so proud of it. It's got the 4700H processor in it. That's an 8-core 16-thread processor in a laptop. It's freaking phenomenal. I love it. And it has an RTX 2060 in it. And it's my travel companion, and I used to travel a lot for work before COVID, and I bought that computer when they first came out. I don't know, I guess it was probably maybe March or so whenever I picked that computer up, and it's been a good computer too. It's got the RTX 2060 in it, but I'll tell you what, the 3090, damned impressive card. 24 gigs of VRAM. I mean, that's phenomenal. I just can't even wrap my brain around that. But the 3080 looks really good. From what I understand, the ray tracing, you know, on the NVIDIA cards is better than what AMD's been able to put together. But you know, this is a new generation for AMD as far as Big Navi is concerned. So we know that probably the ray tracing isn't going to be up to par right now, but still an AMD fan, and plus, you know, you're going to save a little bit of money if you buy Radeon. So I'm not too sure what the future is going to hold. I think probably I'm going to be looking to purchase a 6800 XT within the next 3 to 4 months to put in my desktop build here on my office, and I'll probably take this RX 5700 and move it to my other desktop that I built that's running my sim racing rig and my VR right now, and then sell my 5600 XT. And I may end up upgrading the processor in that one as well, maybe to a 5600. Because from what I understand, it's really good as far as gaming is concerned. But there's so many random topics here, but I'll tell you what, the the 4000 series, Ryzen 4000 series, has been phenomenal. I love my Asus TUF gaming laptop. It's so fantastic, and it has the Ryzen 4700H processor in it. And then I've also got a ROG Zephyrus, and it has the 4700HS processor in it with an NVIDIA GTX 1660 Ti. And I use that for music. I play music, and so I've got my keyboard and stuff set up through it. I'm a keys player. I also play guitar, and it's been nothing but phenomenal. I run Ableton on it, and I run a setup called Sunday Keys when I play keys with it, and it's completely, totally changed my sound and how I go about playing music. And so that laptop has been a phenomenal investment. And it's got the 8-core 16-thread processor in it. And Ableton, whenever you open up the Sunday Keys suite, it generally takes, on a normal, what would have been a normal laptop, like a 4-core 8-thread laptop from a year or two ago, it would take anywhere from 2.5 to 3 minutes for that Ableton software to open up. And now I can do it within 30 seconds. Within 30 seconds, I load Sunday Keys up on my keys, and I'm in there. So if you guys are looking at a laptop, get something with the 4000 series in it right now. They are second to none. I'm loving both of those laptops. So just a little bit more to talk about my transition over to PC. Like I said, I started with PlayStation, and that was kind of my primary whenever the PlayStation 1 came out back in the day. Now I did play obviously some Nintendo, some Sega whenever I was a younger lad. In fact, I got my first Nintendo when I was 16. And I was I was a kid whenever the Nintendo originally released in like 1984 or whatever it was, but my parents, they didn't want to spend the money on a Nintendo, and so I never actually got to own my own video games, except for an old Intellivision that we used to have, till I was old enough to go to work and go purchase my own gaming system. So when I was 16, I had acquired a job of working at the local, I think it was local Hardee's, for a little while, and then I transitioned over and started working at the grocery store. But I bought several consoles right away. I bought a Nintendo, and played on the Nintendo for a while, and I was really thrilled to do that. Some of my favorite games there, retro games, the original Ninja Turtles games, obviously some of the Mario games. All of those things were really great. And then I, almost probably within about a month, had gone out and acquired a Sega Genesis. I didn't buy a Super Nintendo. I bought a Sega Genesis, and about that time the Sega CD was out, and so I purchased a Sega CD, and I can remember playing Eternal Champions on that system. I did want a Super Nintendo because I was a big Street Fighter fan, and so I eventually went out and purchased a Super Nintendo console as well. So I had all of these, and it was probably, I don't know, within the next, I'd say, year or two, and I had gone out and bought my first PlayStation 1. And from that point on, I was pretty much a PlayStation guy. That's really all I was interested in playing on. And then, a little bit of GoldenEye came out, and that was great. But really, PlayStation was where it was at for me. I can remember playing Fighting Force. I can remember playing all the Street Fighter games that they released. Street Fighter Plus Alpha, the 3D games, those were really phenomenal games. I was a big Street Fighter buff. playing Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat 4 was on the PlayStation 1. Tenchu was a great game. I really enjoyed Tenchu. Crash Bandicoot, all of these classic games, and they were really great. And so, fast forward a little bit, PlayStation 2 comes out, and I picked up PlayStation 2, fell in love with it. I actually fell in love with, on the PlayStation 2, Tiger Woods Golf, and I never imagined that I'd be into golf, but man, that game was a lot of fun. And Gran Turismo Racing, that was on the PlayStation 1. I did some of that. Need for Speed 3. Oh man, such good memories of those games. And probably one of the biggest and most influential games, Tony Hawk Pro Skater. Man, that Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1, Pro Skater 2, love those. I was also a fan of the handhelds. Just about anything, anything video games at the time, because I didn't get to play them when I was a kid. The best that I got as far as being a kid was that Intellivision, like I said, which there was a game on that one called Parsec. It was a lot of fun. It was like a space game where you moved up and down and shot at different alien craft that came towards you, and it was a lot of fun. But obviously it was not great. Let me take that back. The Intellivision didn't have that game. The Intellivision, I can't really remember some of the games the Intellivision had. Now we did have a Pong game as well. I forgot about that. We did have a Pong game. That probably was actually our first console, because my grandpa was kind of into computers and stuff like that, and he had acquired an old Pong system, and I can remember playing that as a kid on black and white TV. So yeah, that was fun. So I'm getting a little chatty here on the Intellivision, but I forgot. No, Parsec was on the TI, so we had a TI computer as well. And actually, I say that I was a console guy, but I actually started with a computer, to be honest, to be totally honest. I mean, other than the Pong and the Intellivision, but it was a TI, the Texas Instruments computer. And then my dad got I think it was like a 486 desktop or something like that. It was probably maybe 5 years old or something like that. I can remember going to the local Alco store. I don't know if any of y'all know what Alco is, but local Alco store, and purchasing games for that system at the Alco store. And those games came with there'd be like 4 or 5 floppy disks, 1.44 megabyte floppy disks. Two games that definitely ping my memory is Mega Man, which looked completely and utterly horrid. I mean, it was not pretty. It was pink and blue, and that's what the colors were. And then a game called Test Drive, and it was really bad too. But that was about the only way that I was able to play games, because mom and dad wouldn't invest in a console. So I know I'm bouncing around a little bit, but there's a lot to share here. I mean, there's a lot of history there. And so, fast forward into PlayStation 2 era, really into playing the golf game, into anything racing. And you know what? I've kind of come full circle. I just within the last 2 months, I've gotten back into racing games pretty heavily. And so much so that I went ahead and purchased a force feedback wheel and built a cockpit. And so this is what I'm actually spending probably more of my time doing. In fact, I'm behind on I don't know that I'm going to finish out the Battle Pass this season for Call of Duty, because I've been playing so much more racing games. But, racing was a big deal. Loved the Need for Speed series at the time. And then along came Resident Evil 2. Resident Evil 4. And I had played some of the Resident Evil games on the PlayStation, Resident Evil 1. I didn't ever play Resident Evil 2, really. I didn't play that till I was older, later in life. Resident Evil 1 I thought was good, but I really disliked the controls. So I played through Resident Evil 4 and immediately fell in love with that game. Consequently enough, though, by that time I was an adult, and I was working as a paramedic offshore in the Gulf of Mexico whenever I played that game. And it had been out for a little while. It had already been out on the GameCube. And played that game for... Well, I was offshore and completed it and just completely and utterly fell in love with that. So kind of sort of in between that time between acquiring PlayStation 2 and, I really wasn't much into shooting games, but then I went and played Halo with a friend on Xbox 360 at the time. Excuse me, Xbox One, not 360 at the time. And I played Halo and fell in love with that, Halo 2. And so, I was looking for shooting games too to play, and that's the reason that I came up with Resident Evil 4. And then from that point, I went on and just essentially started eating up as much of the Resident Evil franchise as I could. Fell in love with that. Thought it was really great. Wasn't ready to commit to an Xbox at all. Still was a PlayStation guy at the time. And so I played Resident Evil Code Veronica on the PlayStation 2, and that was really, really good. Enjoyed that game a lot. And I think by that time I had acquired a GameCube as well. And so played, one of the primary games that I fell in love with on the GameCube has got to be, beyond a shadow of a doubt, Metroid Prime. Metroid Prime was so good. And that's one of the games on the Super Nintendo that I just absolutely loved as well, which was Metroid's Super Metroid. And also during the time frame that the PlayStation 1 was out, well, there's Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Just utterly adored that game. Fell in love so much with the Castlevania series at that point that I went back and played some of the originals. I didn't really play those before that. Still didn't love those that much, but they were good. And the 3D games that they had come out with, Castlevania on the 64, the Nintendo 64, and then also the Castlevania. I think it's Aria. Well, no, not Aria. It's what was it? I can't think. It was on the PlayStation 2. It was like a 3D. That game was fun. I'd have to look up the name of that game, but it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed those games. And so, as you can tell, I've got a really, really significant history in console gaming, and it just continues. Through the Xbox 360 era, obviously highly focused on Halo, highly focused on Call of Duty. Call of Duty Modern Warfare being a complete and utter game changer in the world of shooters. That was, such an eye-opening title. And then, fast forward, I had some friends that were playing games on the computer, and I'd get on the computer and I'd play, Doom here, or I'd play, Halo on the Halo 1 came out on the PC back in the day, and I just didn't. My experience kind of in that time frame was that PCs had problems because, if I bought a console and I threw a game in, guess what? It just worked. I didn't have to worry about whether or not I had the newest hardware that would run the games and things like that. And so I think now we're kind of this point where, especially with this setup that I've got now, and plus I've got the funds to do it. That's another thing. Whenever you're a struggling young adult, you've got kids. During the times that I was really playing console, if I invested in something, I wanted it to work. I didn't want to have to upgrade or anything like that in order to play the new games that came out. And so that's probably one big piece of it. But I swear, I swore off any type of PC gaming, and then about a year ago, I finally bit the bullet. And I can't really put my thumb on what I thought it was that inched me towards the PC. Well, I can. Now that I've had an opportunity to say that, part of the reason that I moved towards PC was because I owned a PlayStation 4, I owned an Xbox One, and I was traveling a lot for work. And so, I'm hauling around with me this Xbox or PlayStation, whatever it happened to be at the time, so I could play games in the evening. And I'm like, I should just buy a laptop so that I can play these games. And so, I'm looking at that opportunity, and then I'm looking at my games collection, which I had pretty much switched to mostly digital at that time. I don't like the clutter of media and stuff. I mean, it is kind of nice to own the disc, and for a while I was resistant to digital, but I really do enjoy the digital stuff now. It keeps me from, well, I kind of had a little bit of I'd go to GameStop and trade things off that I would, and then end up wanting it back. That was just the conundrum of GameStop. I don't even go to GameStop anymore. Had a lot of friends that worked there. I liked the store. It was kind of fun to go in and visit, but I don't know. I feel better about myself not dealing with GameStop. And the people that work there, it's not their fault. So anyway, fast forward, I kind of looked at my setup, and I'm like, well, I've got Call of Duty on both my PlayStation and my Xbox. I've got all of these different games on different consoles, and I was buying them twice or maybe even 3 times because I had a Switch. I really like my Switch, so I will make one caveat. I love my Switch. I use it whenever when I'm on the plane, because it's a pain in the butt to pull out my laptop on the plane. But ultimately, the reason I switched to PC was I felt like the platform had matured based on everything that I had seen. And on top of that, all of the games that I play, I can just essentially go ahead and start from wherever I left off. It doesn't matter whether I'm on my desktop. I have 2 desktops that I built. I could be on either one of those and be at the same spot. I don't have to worry about getting 2 Call of Duty accounts leveled up, or 3 Call of Duty accounts leveled up. And if I'm out of town and I'm on my laptop, which is just almost as powerful as my desktops, obviously it's a little bit of give and take there, but I can pick up where I left off. So for me, going to PC really made sense. And then now that I've been doing it, I just love it. I can't think. It's one of those things that I think a lot about. I think about my PCs. I enjoy them. I like to build them. Building PCs is a lot of fun. And I like to build things, so it's kind of in my blood. It's the way that I like to tinker. And so, doing your own. And so, and that's another thing I would say to people. If you do think that you're wanting to maybe get into PC, build your own PC. Don't go out and buy a pre-built PC. Take the time to learn. And it can be a little bit overwhelming. It really can. But there's a lot of good resources out there. A lot of good tech YouTubers out there that can help. But I can't tell you how satisfying it is that I built both these PCs that I own and that I play with. In fact, my cockpit for my racing sim, I do a little bit of woodworking. I built it too. There's something about getting your hands dirty and building something for yourself. Games are fun, but also doing something productive. And so anyway, that's kind of where we're at right now. I'm loving PC. PC is so fantastic. And I can see nothing but them getting better. Because all of the consoles are kind of going to that same architecture, which they already have. And the exclusives are. I mean, heck, I can buy Horizon Zero Dawn, for my PC now. You might have to wait a little bit longer, but I think at some point that stuff is gonna be available, and we know that all of the Microsoft games are gonna go. So anyway, that's that. A lot of fun. Well, I'm gonna go play with a friend of mine, so I hope everybody has a great day.